Yes, this is a very happy Jamie showing off 3 new NES games for his 10th birthday. Do you like my Count Duckula wallpaper, by the way? The games pictured are Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, Turtles the arcade game, and DuckTales. The Nintendo NES was my second ever system right after my Commodore 64, and here are 20 games that I would play on the platform back in the day. If you were born in the early to mid 80s, you would likely watch Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. It was a very popular show at the time, and we had 2 NES games for it too. The best of the two was easily this one. It's a fun and colourful platform which also offers a 2-player co-op mode. Use objects to hide away from robots and throw them at enemies too. It's a fairly easy game initially, but as most NES games, it gets very challenging halfway through. After each stage, a boss awaits. You even get to choose which stage you will enter next with the world map. It's a game I used to play a hell of a lot of back in the early 90s, and it's definitely a platformer worthwhile playing if you haven't already. So there are 2 DuckTale games on the NES, just like Chip 'n Dale. I think this one, the first one, is the best of the 2. Also based on the cartoon from around the same era as Chip 'n Dale. You play as Scrooge McDuck and you must travel the world searching for your nephews. It features an infectious soundtrack. I do believe I was playing this game at a friend's house one weekend. When I snuck up there, I heard a bang on the door. It was my mother, who was fuming that I had just walked all the way to his house, being around 9 at the time, and it was a distance away too. That feeling of doom and terror when you were in trouble with your mother. Anyways, DuckTales for NES, a totally awesome game. Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the NES. Not much love for this game, I don't think, but I have whacked this one on my list because it's a game I used to play a lot of, and a game I would just get frustrated with, especially when playing the second stage, which was the motorbike and T-1000 chase stage. Yes, that one. I think the music in this game was a big factor for me. I love the music, and gameplay wise, minus the motorbike stage, it's actually pretty good. Kind of like a beat 'em up, although the characters chasing after you doesn't resemble much of the first part of the Terminator 2 film much. Personally, I was never a big fan of Gremlins 2, the film, but damn, this game is so good. A top-down action-adventure game where you play as Gizmo and battle baddies, fight bosses, and use shops to power up and buy extra lives to help you throughout the game. This game, once again, starts off very easy, but god damn, this game gets ridiculously hard halfway through. Great music in a solid platformer. It's another game that I would play a lot of back in the day, and still holds up well to this very day. Another friend of mine back in the day introduced me to Kickle Cubicle. It is a platform puzzler where you must shoot and create ice blocks and push them to get to items that you need in order to finish each stage. It's a fun and cheerful game that has always stuck with me over the years. To be honest, I am not even sure if people rate this game very much, but it's certainly one that I enjoyed playing a lot of back in my childhood. What can I tell you that you likely don't already know about the Mega Man games? They are easily known as the hardest NES games around. Mega Man 2 is pretty much the only Mega Man game I ever had at the time. As much as I enjoyed playing this one, I realised the difficulty of it at the time. I could have used Game Genie but never owned one because I never liked cheating. It's a great platformer where you can select which level to play, which is represented by leveled bosses. You will find yourself in times of rage playing this game, and trust me, this game gets hard. Yes, I was a big Robocop fan like I still am today. Although Robocop on the NES isn't the greatest game of all, I included it because it is another game I would play on and off over the years. Its difficulty level can be challenging, but I think most of all I would play this because of being such a big fan of the film. Odds game, the enemies running towards you kinda look like children, or is that just me? Loosely follows the film, but always thought the helicopter on the first stage throwing bombs at you was very strange. Never happened in the film, so what the hell was this about? Bart vs. the Space Mutants came out just as The Simpsons launched on Fox in the early 90s. The premise is unusual, granted. It is of course based on the Space Mutants taking over Springfield, and Bart needs to complete objectives in each stage from iconic parts of the show. For example, in stage 1, everything needs to be sprayed a different colour, and you can also buy cherry bombs and rockets which spray paints higher objects than you not physically reach by hand. Likely, this game frustrated many kids back in the day because of its difficulty level. It's not really a bad game, just tough as nails and totally unforgiving. I think it's the best of the bunch on the NES. Tiny Toons was a short TV show that was massive at the time and spawned a film or two which were also decent to watch at a young age. Tiny Toon Adventures, as you can see, is a standard platformer where you can morph into different characters from the TV show, which each have different abilities to help you in the levels. The difficulty level surely ramps up from stage 2 onwards, and damn, this gets hard. I would play this one endlessly back in the day. It's a charming game which is very nostalgic for most people of a certain age. To be fair, there wasn't many decent ports of the famous Turtles arcade game which spanned across consoles and computers at the time, but this port on the NES is likely the best port of them all, and even features extra levels to make the game longer, levels that weren't in the original arcade game. For an 8-bit console, the NES certainly pulled this off really well, and if you didn't have an arcade nearby, this was the very best next spin to have at the time. I'll be honest, I had no idea how to play this game, but always found it awesome how the cartridge was coated in gold plastic rather than the generic grey colour here in Britain at the time. It is a sequel, of course, to Zelda, which has gone on to be one of Nintendo's biggest franchises, likely next to Mario. I think this game had not so great rating at the time because original Zelda fans didn't like the sudden change of style of gameplay. The game itself is a case of using a world map to enter levels and get information from villages to guide you what to do in the game. It seems a very tough game and definitely has gone down in history as one of the hardest on the Nintendo NES. Super Mario Bros. 3, when released, was the biggest Mario game of that era, and spanning 8 different worlds, each with many stages, was a massive deal at the time. Mario also had different power-ups in Mario Bros. 3, which hadn't been seen in a Mario game at that point. It was a huge leap forward for the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, and is all around a solid classic for the Nintendo NES. It's unlikely that you wouldn't have played this if you're watching this video, but trust me, it is likely the best prior to Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo coming out back in the day. There are 2 Power Blades games on the NES. I have never played the sequel, but I can tell you, if you are a fan of Mega Man, you will likely enjoy Power Blade. Very similar layout where you can select a stage to play from the get-go. It is very challenging, but also a very addictive platformer. Definitely recommend this one for those who have never heard of it or even played it. Kung Fu was a very early Nintendo NES game on the Black Label, which is a port of an arcade game. A simple case of scrolling along the levels and punching or kicking down enemies that you approach. It's a game that I remember playing on and off back in the day, and surely was an addictive game back in the day too. I just wanted to know what was on the next floor up, and then the next floor up after that. A very addictive game, like I say, and regardless of all, a solid arcade conversion. Batman these days is held as a classic for Nintendo NES, and for very good reason too. Despite its ridiculously high difficulty level, which makes you want to cry at times in anger, it is a damn good game which released around the same time as the Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson Tim Burton film. You can select different weapons to help you take down enemies in the game. If you haven't played it, good luck to you. This one's difficulty is right up there with the Mega Man games. Bubble Bobble had many ports back in the day, mostly all regardless great ports. However, I'll always remember this version on Nintendo NES was by far the very best of them. Bub and Bob must shoot bubbles at enemies on screen. When they are floating, you simply walk into them to release the treats. I am pretty sure I managed to get around to level 87 back in the day, and was always curious of how many levels in the Bubble Bobble game there actually were. There was also a sequel, but never had it or even played it. This game is an absolute classic and a must for Nintendo NES fans. Where many systems failed to create a decent home conversion of the massively popular Double Dragon arcades game, Nintendo actually got it right. So it isn't 100% direct port, as this version features completely different stages and music, but damn, this game is just so great. You even power up through the game, earning you new fighting abilities, which can be earned by beating up enemies. The more points you earn, the quicker you will power up using more exotic fighting moves. Such a classic game, and by far one of the very best on the Nintendo NES. And how could I not mention Double Dragon 2? It's not too often that a sequel beats the greatness of a classic original, but in this case, Double Dragon 2 The Revenge did just that. You don't need to power up earning points in this sequel, you have all the moves from the get-go. The thing which makes this sequel so loved is the level design and the music. The roundhouse kick is by far just so awesome too. I played this so much back in the day and truly loved this game. It has stood the test of time for sure, and is held as one of those games which is the greatest beat 'em ups on the system. Yes, go on, say it. Why have you put this game on the list? Well, because regardless of it being a strange take on the popular TV show, it's actually a solid platformer which, damn, offers a high difficulty level. Remember the swimming stage and the electrics? How many kids back in the day would this part of the game make them cry? The Turtles game had many different ports, but this one, just like Double Dragon, was by far the best version out there. Yes, a truly frustrating game, but for nostalgia it brings a smile on my face, and it's one of those games I would constantly play as a kid. Being such a huge fan of the franchise, Who wasn't though? Words cannot express to a generation of just how big the Turtles were at the time. And here we go. You wasn't expecting this as my number one, was you? Beat 'em ups were 2 a penny back in the day, but roller games was a completely different take on this genre and offered a new level of frustration. It's the NES game that I remember playing most of out of everything that I would play on NES in the early 90s, and it holds down such a nostalgic feeling for me when I play it. I have since found out that it's actually based on an arcades game, which is very different to how this one plays. I totally recommend roller games on the NES if you haven't played it. The music is fantastic, and it is just a solid beat 'em up.